Greetings, friends. Today we'll discuss the situation in Ukraine as of November 13th, 2024. There's been a huge number of developments today, so let's dive in. We'll start with the Kursk direction, where, on what appears to be the fifth day of the third counter-offensive, the armed forces of the Russian Federation reportedly managed to break through the defense of the Ukrainian armed forces. Starting on this fifth day of the offensive, more or less reliable footage has begun to emerge, showing the advance of the Russian army. Let's start specifically with the northern salient, where the main battles are unfolding. Before we discuss geolocations, let's examine how the map changed between November 11th and November 12th. Just yesterday, the forest between Kremina and Olgovka by Zeleny Shliak was still contested territory. Forested areas between Novosolovka and Pogrebki were also contested, but today, on both the eastern and western flanks, the map has shifted in favor of the Russian armed forces. For example, footage from the Kremina area was corrected based on videos published by Russian sources, showing how the offensive progressed in this area. We can see numerous drone strikes, and all footage is entirely focused on the operations of Russian drones, aviation and tanks in this forest area. A significant amount of Ukrainian equipment was destroyed, and some UAF units managed to evacuate, while others further south were encircled and taken captive. Based on this footage, the entire section has apparently been abandoned. In this point, based on two videos, the entire map in this area has been abandoned. On the northern flank near Pogrebki, the UAF's 95th Brigade also released a lot of footage showing various episodes of combat operations, specifically attempts by the UAF to repel repeated Russian advances. In this footage, we see only destroyed equipment, with several pieces between Pogrebki and the village of Sheptukivka. Based on this footage, the entire northern section has fully shifted up to this line. Moving on to Novaya Ivanovka, there are also intense battles here. Russian units are currently trying to assault the settlement of Leonidovka from the south and simultaneously from the north. Although it's hard to say the effectiveness of these offensive operations yet, we can see that despite advancements and a general trend towards a breakthrough, Russian forces are still incurring losses. In this footage, we see Russian equipment moving southward toward Alexandria and Leonidovka. Near the settlement of Novaya Ivanovka, footage of assault operations was also published by the UAF's 225th Separate Assault Battalion, which appears to be responsible for defending the eastern part of Novaya Ivanovka. Again, we see numerous episodes with Russian equipment, assault operations, and a large number of personnel involved in these operations. In the last footage, we see several units of equipment entering the eastern part of Novaya Ivanovka. This is a street in the eastern part of Novaya Ivanovka, where Russian equipment is advancing. Note this building. A shot was fired from it, most likely from a grenade launcher, possibly at Russian equipment, after which the vehicle was hit. Russian troops began to disembark, and in this spot, there was a clash. From this building, fire was directed at the southeastern part of Novaya Ivanovka, which appears to be under Ukrainian control, while the northeastern part is already under Russian control. We'll await further geolocations. Overall, regarding the third counteroffensive and the current phase, it seems the main goal of the Russian forces is to reach this red line between the settlements of Stara Sorochinka, Kruglenka, Alexandria, Leonidovka, and Novaya Ivanovka. Russian command seems to be focusing on this area. At the same time, it's worth noting the increased activity of Russian drones along the Zeleny Shliak line towards Serdikovka. Let's take a look at the latest footage. Over the past day, a large number of videos have been published showing Russian FPV operators striking forward positions of the Ukrainian armed forces, abandoned equipment along strongpoints, and UAF frontline positions. It seems that a clearing operation is underway, as Ukrainian troops have managed to gather a substantial group here. As a reminder, all these strongpoints were initially set up by the Russian army, but they were unable to fully utilize them due to, let's say, the unexpected push by Ukrainian forces at the end of August. Currently, these defensive lines are occupied by UAF units, but clearing operations are ongoing, with similar reports coming in from the area of the settlement Kurakhovo. A large number of drones are operating over the area, targeting Ukrainian units and preventing them from conducting timely rotations. Meanwhile, Russian units are pressing Ukrainian forces along the Zeleny Shliak-Sverdlikovo line. Main Russian units are continuing offensive operations toward Nikolaev-Daryino, and fighting is also ongoing in the southern part of the settlement of Daryina. And then there's the ongoing unclear situation in the village of Nizhny Klin. Some sources report that Nizhny Klin has already come under Russian control, though no objective evidence has been published to confirm this. Fighting has also resumed in the southeastern part of the Sudzhan direction. In addition to artillery strikes and FPV drone strikes on the village of Kurakhovo, over the past day, the Ukrainian side published materials about an interesting and rather cunning maneuver by the Russian armed forces. Looking at the village of Kurakhovo, one may wonder why this settlement, located on the Russian side of the Psel River, remains under UAF control. The Russian army has made several attempts to storm it, but all previous attempts have failed. The main reason Kurakhovo has held out for so long is its supply route, which runs from Sudzha through Dmitriukhovka southwards toward Kurakhovo. As we can see, the map here has shifted slightly in favor of the Russian armed forces. At the beginning of the third Sudzhan counteroffensive, a specific mission was given to certain Russian units to capture this strategically important position, this bridgehead. Note the Konopelka River in the north and the Psel River further south. Between these two bridges is a small area that served as a critical logistical artery for the UAF's supply and rotation operations in Kurakhovo. Russian units landed on this bridgehead with the task of holding it, likely until reinforcements arrived, or until the storming of Kurakhovo was complete. After the bridgehead was secured, the next objective for Russian forces was to expand it in both southern and northern directions. However, the bridgehead was discovered by Ukrainian reconnaissance, and Russian forces began to come under artillery and mortar strikes, as well as FPV drone attacks. The footage was published by the Ukrainian side, so it's difficult to say how this operation ultimately ended. But based on this footage, the map has been adjusted. It's indeed a very intriguing operation, which may well mark the beginning of a larger offensive towards Kurakhovo. Without supply lines, the UAF would not be able to hold its positions in the settlement for long, and sooner or later they would be forced to retreat towards the village of Hueva. With the start of the Russian counteroffensive, Ukrainian units are concentrating their reserves as close as possible to the border near the village of Sudzha. Regarding the dam near Kurakhovo, in any case, the destruction of this dam would greatly benefit Russian units as the water is now flowing along the Volchya River, significantly complicating UAF supply routes coming from the west. This, in turn, gives additional advantages to Russian units. Today, significant adjustments were made to the map in both eastern Kurakhovo and in the settlement of Dalnyaya. Starting this morning, many services began updating the map in Kurakhovo. Pro-Russian sources showed control of the eastern part, while pro-Ukrainian mapping services indicated that today the Russian army made several assault attempts towards school number 3 in Kurakhovo. This is the specific school. Yesterday evening, the 46th Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces published a 2.5-minute video showing combat operations on the Kurakhovo front. The footage depicts the brigade's efforts to slow Russian forces' advance and includes various scenes of artillery fire, FPV drones, and one scene along Zaporizhzhia Avenue in eastern Kurakhovo. This video provides visual confirmation that Russian forces managed to reach at least this point during their assault operations. Whether they were able to hold it is uncertain, as the video was shared by the Ukrainian side. Today we see that roughly 50% of eastern Kurakhovo is under Russian control, with about 50% remaining before the fight for the central stronghold begins. The most critical updates, however, come from the settlement of Dalnyaya. We've often discussed the operation to encircle Kurakhovo from the flanks, and today this information was confirmed with objective control footage. The UAF and Ukrainian sources report multiple assaults, stating that Russian forces attacked Dalnyaya from 4 directions. During these assaults, Russian units reportedly broke through UAF defenses and secured positions within the village. According to objective control footage, Russian forces now control at least 60 to 65% of the settlement, with possibly 30 to 35% remaining under UAF control. The video, shared by Ukrainian sources from the 33rd Mechanized Brigade, shows tank assaults with significant amounts of equipment regrouping for further advance toward Dalnyaya. The Ukrainian side attempted to delay the Russian offensive with artillery and FPV drone strikes, yet most of the Russian equipment reached the village. Ukrainian units could not withstand the Russian army's push, and based on this footage, the map has been updated. Just yesterday, there were reports of a Ukrainian tank targeting Russian assault forces here. Today, more than half of Dalnyaya is under Russian control. We can confirm that the Kurakhovo-Uspanovka route has been physically cut off, making it impossible for the UAF to use it. This creates a critical situation for Ukrainian units concentrated along the southeastern bank of the Sukhi-Yali River in settlements like Yelizavetovka, Ilinka, Romanovka, and Ganovka. Within the next 2 days, Ukrainian units will need to withdraw from this pocket. Otherwise, a large number of personnel could be encircled without any chance of retreat, as retreating along the river will be extremely difficult.